选出的代表来与政府部门进行谈判。
This man has already spent nearly 2 years in a Chinese jail. His crime was to establish a free trade union. Today, his message is the same. The only difference is it's being heard all over China.
用示威游行阻断交通来向政府施加压力，这当然是我们的正当权利。
3 times a week, Han records a program for Radio Free Asia from the heart of Hong Kong. His show has become one of few outlets for dissatisfied workers on the mainland and an important part of a growing network calling for labor rights and free unions in China.
喂，喂，你姓王吗？
This listener complains that he's being forced to buy shares in the near-bankrupt state factory he works for. It's a complaint he can't make to the official union, which is supposed to represent him.
有人要交多少钱？
最少3天。
3天啊？啊，3000。
为什么呢？
那如果要是拿不出钱来怎么办？
那就以住房啊、分房子、升级、奖金、年终奖金挂钩。
The downsizing of state factories has left millions without jobs, but schemes like this just inflame the situation, encouraging workers to speak out.
四川省江油市长城特殊钢铁厂有近3万人10个月没有发工资，已经引起了工人强烈的不满。我们谴责自贡市当局以暴力镇压和平示威工人的违法行为，这是对公民集会游行示威权利的公然侵犯和粗暴践踏。
In Zigong, it's festival time, a river of light to entice tourists and badly needed foreign investment. But the happy faces and bright lights are a superficial cover-up. Zigong's city government has spent $1 million on the Lantern Festival. In December, workers were warned their interests were to be sacrificed temporarily for the sake of the festival. $1 million for lanterns when some workers hadn't been paid for more than a year.
The radio listeners says to me, in that city, more than 70% to 80% of the state enterprises not working anymore. They're dying, actually. So if these factories are bankruptcy, it means the whole city is bankrupt. So nobody will find a job.
Zigong is a city like many in China, where the state sector has always dominated. Now it's sharing another ubiquitous trait, high unemployment. Officials put the number of China's jobless at 12 million. A further 10 million will join the queue in the next 2 years. During the 15th Communist Party Congress last October, President Jiang Zemin gave orders to speed up the reform of lumbering state-owned factories, even at the expense of more jobs. Zigong is no exception. In the light of day, it doesn't take much to find evidence of Zigong's demise. This is the city's biggest salt factory. We're told it's not producing today because of a damaged pipe. Like most of Zigong's traditional industries, salt has taken a beating with the advent of the market economy. The local government talks about restructuring. The reality suggests massive layoffs. In the past year, there have been 5 demonstrations in the city of Zigong, at one stage involving almost 6,000 people. The protesters are all workers laid off from state factories on the verge of bankruptcy. In the past, these incidents went largely unreported, but no longer. A network is beginning to form all over China to spread the word that workers won't take it any longer. We're here to find the people behind last year's protests, to witness what could be the beginnings of China's free trade union movement. The last protest on December the 4th involved Zigong's pedicab drivers. They demonstrated against new rules banning tricycles from the city centre. Most of the drivers were laid-off workers trying to earn a crust. The inner city is their most lucrative pickup point. We saw the pedicab drivers, but almost as plentiful, the police. Anxious to prevent any labour unrest during the Lantern Festival.
We came to Zhegung to interview a worker who was going to tell us about how and why the demonstrations were organised. But when we arrived, we found the severity of the police crackdown meant the worker was too afraid to even speak to us.
Word has been passed that another worker who's now fled Zhegung will speak with us if we can meet him elsewhere. So we travel hundreds of kilometres to another city. The worker is running from the police. He's changed his identity and fears immediate arrest if he ever returns to Zhegung. We arranged to meet him at a busy intersection, making sure he hasn't been followed. Zhegung machinery worker Mr. Xiao, like countless others, makes a ritual of tuning his shortwave radio to Handong Feng's labour program. From the radio, Mr. Xiao gleaned how unions are organised overseas. He hears stories from workers all over China and decided to speak out instead of keeping silent. Shortly after the tricycle drivers demonstrated in December, he took a huge risk by alerting foreign news and human rights agencies to the unrest in his city.
Did you help to organise the demonstrations in Zhegung?
实际上不是我组织的，也不是我发动的，而这种自动式的游行示威活动是他们本身就是说自己有这个特殊环境的，他们就本身就是这个工厂的工人。 或者他本身就是三轮车司机，他们自己处于没有办法生活的情况下，而且是他们最不愿意采用这种方法的情况下才走上街头的，并不是我去组织的和这个去发动的。
So why are you running away from the police?
因为警察找了我已经，他们对我严密的监视，而且我的家人呢全部都被找到警察局去谈话。 所以说，我就离开了这个自贡。
What would happen if they found you?
那可能就是在监狱里面去，一个是劳动教养，一个是判刑。
He hoards every skerrick of information about China's unemployment situation, for despite the hardline attitude of the government, the movement is growing.
在中国的每一个城市都有游行示威，只要我到达的地方，我在中国我认识的人。 就是我一起住旅馆的时候碰到新认识的人，只要我们一见面一谈起一个问题，大家都会说我们那里的有工人走上街头游行示威。
If China had free trade unions, how would things be different for workers now?
就现在很多工人啊，他们就是说找不到一个地方来保护自己，就是说出现了很多，比如说暴力的问题，就我们在很多报章上面都可以看到。 所以我想，如果有一个工会他们发言的地方的话，那么就不会出现，就或者说可以减少这类事情的发生。
When the Communist Party took power in 1949, it promised to look after the workers with a cradle-to-grave support system dubbed the Iron Rice Bowl. In return for conformity, their every need was met. The move to the market economy has shattered the Iron Rice Bowl, and as yet, nothing has been put in its place. Unions fall under the umbrella of the party's propaganda department. They encourage vocational training and dispense relief funds, but aren't there to protect workers' rights to protest. Workers have become increasingly hostile about their raw deal, but according to Handong Feng, the government's system of political repression doesn't allow them to vent their anger.
You just take care of the part to be survived as an animal. So we will take care of how do you think and your mind and your speaking. That's impossible. So that is the main reason I say the government policy makes people still keep the broken dream. Say, okay, you force me, don't think, and you force me, don't speak. Okay, means you will take care of me.
From Beijing, the ferment around the country doesn't go unnoticed. Dissidents see the wave of dissatisfaction as an opening, an opportunity for political change. But getting to them isn't easy. China's repressive ways not only silences workers, it restricts foreign journalists from access to dissidents who increasingly write about labour unrest. To arrange an interview with dissident Xu Wen Li, I call him from a public phone at a designated time to ensure the call isn't traced. The police have been following him all week, but today, he says, they're taking a break. To be on the safe side, we wait for nightfall before driving to his home. Dissident Xu Wen Li is one of a growing number of activists who believes the current labour unrest is a vehicle for bigger social and political change. He spent 12 years in jail for promoting democracy. Since his release in 1993, he's continued to push for political reform. But as the layoffs mount in China's state sector, Xu has joined the call for the establishment of free unions.
我想这主要是有两点，一个的话呢，中共产党的自己利用工人和农民的力量去推翻了国民党的这个政权，他们曾经走过了这样一条革命的道路，所以的话呢，他们非常担心这些持不同政见者在告诉工人有这个权利的过程当中，这些持不同政见者也想沿着他们这样一条路走下去，然后呢推翻他们这个政权和夺取他们这个政权所以他有这样的担心。
As proof of widespread anger and frustration, we're given a list of names, dissidents and writers scattered all over China sharing similar views. Some advocate rapid change, others, like Mr. Xu, call for something more gradual. Together, they form a loose association of dissident views, views that the Chinese Communist Party periodically seeks to crush.
我想，这个就是我这些朋友，他们在国内的话，都是以比较独立的身份来发表自己的意见，但是他们因为20年的光景，他们都形成了一个很深厚的朋友的关系。应该说，他还没有任何组织上的形态。
Do you think the Chinese leadership feels you pose a threat to them?
我想中国政府不应该对我们这种朋友之间的交往表示担心。
But the government does worry. It's made too many enemies to believe its position at the top is safe. Now, with millions of workers facing an unknown future, the potential for instability is greater than ever.
Do you want to overthrow the Chinese government?
我没有这种想法。
So what do you want to achieve?
如果我们国家这样下去的话，中国有可能发现这个出现大规模的这种动乱。如果说这个我们国家的制定政策领导人不了解，他不去这个根据这个面对现实去解决问题的话，那么有可能今后出现这种推翻政府的行为。那个推翻政府的行为才是我们整个中国最大的一种灾难。
但是呢，他们特别没有钱的人就要承担那些后果。
Back in Hong Kong, Han Dongfang continues keeping tabs on where the situation is heading. Another day on the phone to his listeners tells him the situation has reached boiling point.
Now it is happening. It is a time bomb. But the most dangerous point is not time bomb itself, The dangerous point is nobody can touch it. Nobody can try to resolve it. Nobody can, even getting any closer to it. And also nobody knows the time, when will be the time to explode. Any time it could be.
And what happens when it explodes?
Everybody will be hurt, including the Communist Party, including workers ourselves, of course, and including everybody you have your interests in this country, all over the world.
The party has too quickly forgotten the workers' contribution to China's near-miraculous growth, breaking a promise of lifelong care and robbing workers of their voice at a time when they need it most. But for Han Dongfang, the circle of friends is growing, and patiently he'll wait for the day when he can do more than shout from the sidelines.